Hello. In this video we're going to talk about Lab 10, which is about graphing a function, a mathematical function. You will have 5 functions, 3 of which are already implemented. The idea of it is that we plot the graph left to right, pixel by pixel, and draw a very short line between pixel 1 and pixel 2, and by the time it gets the entire diagram drawn, the function looks smooth. So the data structure, the data elements are just the x and the f of x of the function. The data structure is this abstract class function that holds an abstract method function value that you are required to implement. You can copy the examples in function 1, function 2, and function 3, which are already implemented. Each function has a function value method and a two-string method. That the two-string method, the purpose for it is to display the purpose of the description of the function. And then the data manager implements the methods of the graph manager interface and implements the two-string method or calls it. So you'll need to go into a graph manager to uncomment out the two elements that are the two functions, function 4 and function 5. So you'll already have implemented those 3 functions, function 1, 2, and 3, and you'll be implementing function 4 and 5. So we'll show you in a minute how the GUI looks. And there are 2 versions, one with J-option panes, and if you're a Mac user, you could avoid that by selecting the other version, which is valid for Windows users as well. Now there is this thing called a left and a right extent, and when you select a method, you will be asked to enter a left and a right extent. What does this mean? Well, this is the left and right limits of the graph that you're going to draw. And it's used to compute the maximum and minimum within that range so that the display is appropriate. The main thing that you'll need to do is to go into the method called drawGraph and use the following method, this method here, GC stroke line, to draw the line segment between 2 points x1, y1 and x0, y0, which we'll have a little more detail about in a minute. So the reason for an abstract method, abstract class function, is because the function value to plot is implemented for you, so you don't have to worry about transforming the coordinate system. So here are the tasks. Study the code, first of all. Secondly, implement the line drawing. The line drawing is probably the most tricky part, and so you go into the method drawGraph, and you probably have to play around a little bit to figure out where to put the GC stroke line, but you'll figure it out. And experiment with the 3 functions, vary the left and right extents. And then in task 2, you're asked to implement function 4 just like functions 1, 2, and 3, very similar, except it's a different function. And notice that the denominator of function 3 is a cubic polynomial. And so since the point of this lab is to understand where the limits exist, obviously the limit does not exist when the denominator is 0. So in the task number 2, your task is to figure out where function 4, the denominator of function 3, where it goes to 0. And then there's sine of 1 over x, which is very interesting. So you'll want to implement that and ask what you think is happening with the function. So let me go to Eclipse and show you how it works. There are actually 2 versions of the driver, one that drives the J-option pane version and one that drives the alert version. So both Windows and Mac users can use the alert version. Windows users only can use the J-option pane. Okay, so this is the alert version, and we're going to run it, and we're going to get an error. What happened? There we go. So when you get the GUI up, you're going to it's going to say graph a function, and you the toString method for each of these 5 functions prints out what is going to be plotted. And so you want to just enter a number. Let's enter let's enter 2, the sine of x. And so now, like I said earlier, the extent, the left and right extents, are intended to allow the code to estimate the highest and lowest points so they can readjust the size of the screen. Let's say minus 6 and plus 6. So there's the graph you'd expect, the sine graph. Notice this gray line, which is the 0 point, just for reference. If you say graph a function again, you can go and find other functions. Oh, I have to choose one. So there's 1 over x, and obviously the limit is at 0. Now there are no tick marks, there are no description of where the 0 point is, but you have to figure that out in your write-up for function 4 and function 5. So that is the graph and the graph lab. Of course, you're going to upload it to GitHub and then submit the whole set of files to Blackboard.